Hello guys, welcome back to today's live interview. I'm here today with Mary Grant, founder of Mary Grant, which is a ladies' fashion garments company. You're a best-selling author, Mary, and you've been featured in the Irish Times and Irish Independent many times. Today, we're actually going to go into a lot of detail on how Mary rapidly pivoted her retail business online. So it's all part of the Inspiring Pivots series, which is designed to give you a dose of inspiration if you are trying to pivot your business online as a small business. So Mary, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Seb. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm good. Excited to dive into this with you. I think it's a very inspiring story, which I think a lot of our viewers are going to really enjoy. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, thanks. So tell me, Mary, what is it that brought you to doing what you do? What brought you to creating Mary Grant in the first place?
Well, from a very young child, I was always making things. So like anything, it could have been anything, but I just got really interested in making clothes, and I was fascinated by how they were constructed and how the pieces all fit together and all the rest. So I didn't go to college until I was 22. Like everybody that I knew at the time, I just got out and I got a job, and then just the bug bit, and I went to college for 2 years and set up my own business from there. But it was never my plan to design collections. I always just wanted to be able to be at home if I had a family, had kids, and just make clothes. So it kind of snowballed once I got to college. I got a little bit more ambitious.
Amazing. So college for how long? For 3 years or?
For 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. It was enough to get me going. It was enough to give me the confidence to get going. I think I probably knew quite a lot before I got to college. So I just needed the things to get me started. So I pretty much started my own label straight away after I left college.
Wow.
Yeah, I just got lucky I fell in with somebody who had done, she had tutored us a little bit in college, and I went and I started banging on her door saying, let me come in and give me some work experience. So I got in with her, and from the tips and advice that she gave me, I was able to get my first collection going. So yeah, it just kind of happened quite organically.
So how long ago was that now from when you first started your own label, and you were, 24 at this stage?
I'm going to have to tell a lie now, or you're going to know how old I am.
No, sorry.
It'll be 28 years in June since I started my business.
Okay, cool. Amazing. Wow. Yeah. And you've been smashing it for 28 years. I love that. That's so cool.
Well, pivoting a lot, I think, in the 28 years. It's every time you hit a roadblock, you have to go, oops, how am I going to get around this one? So there's been quite a bit of that over the 28 years, I have to say.
Well, it's like what you and I were talking about before we went live, becoming a bit addicted to problem solving, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because you've been doing this for so long, the second you have some time off, you look for problems to solve.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Filling every minute with new ideas.
Right. It's a way of life. So, amazing. So, okay, so walk me through, if you could just give me, some of the insights into the previous pivots you've had to do. I think that would be really interesting, because ultimately, this is about pivoting rapidly online, yes, but also, pivoting. So could you give us a bit of an insight into other pivots you've made?
Yeah, so the first one, I think, was probably when my husband and I split up, and I had 3 small kids. They were all under the age of 5. I just started to start exporting. So we just started to get a foothold in the UK, Canada, Sweden, a few places like that. And there was one day that my daughter called me. I was just about to get onto a flight, and she was crying, I have a sore throat, I want you. So I pulled my bag off the flight, and I went home. And I pulled back from wholesale. That was it. I stopped wholesaling from then on. And I decided I was just going to concentrate on what I could do from home to be with my kids and all the rest. So that was probably the first pivot. So I opened a studio in my house where the public came in the afternoon. So it was very often everybody's kids running around, and God, there'd be more kids than anything. And the crack was just mighty, and so like customers still talk about that. So it just allowed me to build a really personal experience with my customers, you know, which further down the road was really, it really served me very well. So that was a wonderful time.
Yeah.
The second pivot came, I think the second pivot came, so at that stage we had 13 shops that we would have stocked. And we were pretty much, that was saturation for us in Ireland. I wasn't interested in anybody else. They all had their own space, their own area. The second pivot came when I won an award from Brown Thomas, would be the luxury, like it's the Selfridges of Ireland, basically. So they're the same, they're owned by the same company and they're run by the same people. So they gave me a mentoring award, and I moved into their department store for a 2-week pop-up. And we blew them away with what we did in the 2 weeks. And everybody was going, oh my God, what are you selling? So that was amazing. So we were there for 2 weeks. The following month, the following season, they said, well, would you like to do a pop-up for a month? So I said, okay, we'll do a pop-up for a month. We got a bigger space on the floor, and we were there 2 weeks. And I said, you do know, if you want me to leave now, you're going to have to throw me out the window because we're not leaving. So we stayed for 5.5 years.
Wow.
We went in for a month and stayed for 5.5 years. But just after that, the recession really hit us hard. So that was 2009 we went in. 2011 was when it really, like when my business really felt it. At that point, a lot of the shops were closing. It was just quite scary. You know, so I decided, okay, we'll stop wholesaling altogether. We'll stay in the department store. That was working for us. It kept me going. I introduced a diffusion line, which it worked so well over a few seasons before I stopped doing it again. And then after the 5.5 years, I felt like my time was up in the department store. So that's when I opened my own stores. And just being the person that I am, I'm just a bit ridiculous at times, but I went into them on October the 31st, and they said, we're leaving. I had no idea where we were going. They said, well, you know, what about your team? And I said, don't touch my team are coming with me. So up until that time, because I just felt so loyal to them, I couldn't even look for a premises while I was still there. So I got 3 months notice to move out of, you know, to start looking for somewhere, and have moved in. So we moved out on the 28th of January, which was my birthday. It was my worst birthday ever. I was a really emotional wreck. And we moved into our new premises on the 5th of February, and we were open a week later. So, you know, everything, it was speed. It was like, make the decision, move fast, no self-doubt. It was like, and I think every time you hit a bump in the road, when you figure out, it's like, you know this, when you figure out the problems, the next time you hit another bump in the road, it's like, that just kicks in straight away. You don't even think about it. You just get on that hat, and it's like, okay, I'm just going to figure this out. So, you know, it was a few different pivots along the way. So when this one came along, when COVID hit and we had to close our stores, the first couple of weeks were quite scary. And I actually threw myself into writing an online course that first week that we were closed. So there was nothing coming in. I had to speak to my team. I had to deal with all that. Sorry.
I'd like to just kind of approach this from a slower perspective, right? So okay. When did you first hear about you know, that your stores would close down?
So for about 2 weeks before we closed, so say from around the beginning of March, I noticed that my team members were starting to get very anxious about going to work. People were starting to fall off. The footfall was starting to disappear. And then on the weekend, just before St. Patrick's Day, so on the 14th of March, which was a Saturday, we could hear, so basically where we are in Dublin, you'd get a lot of tourists typically. And we were starting to hear conversations and starting to hear remarks that we weren't comfortable with, you know, where just people were just not being very pleasant around, and the girls were getting really anxious. So on the Sunday we said, okay, well, what will we do? Will we just close for a couple of weeks and see how it goes? So that was a decision that we took before we were told to lock down, and we closed our 2 stores that day. And And actually,
Wow.
just actually, probably, I rang the people who own the centre that we are in Dublin. So it's this beautiful old townhouse. It's just the most gorgeous building. And I rang them and I said, look, we can't keep trading at the moment. Told them what had been going on, the conversations that the girls had heard, and they actually closed the centre themselves 2 hours later. So that was the start of it, around the middle of March.
Wow. Yeah, very, 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 very nerve-wracking. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Not knowing when you may be able to open up again.
And at the time, we thought it was 2 weeks. You know,
how do you approach that from a leadership perspective when you've got a team of? I mean, how many staff did you employ on that day?
There's nine of us, including me, so 8 others.
8 others, and of course they're looking to you. This is sort of before the government, were offering furloughing, anything like that. That wasn't necessarily on the radar at that stage. That came at the end of March.
Yes.
So when you said, right, we're going to close down and we don't know when we're going to open back up again, how did you kind of approach that from a leadership perspective?
I've always been, while I know what my big vision is, I do tend to consult my team on things like that because I don't work in the stores myself. So I would always look for them to be involved in making decisions. So they were very comfortable with that decision at that point. They were almost encouraging me to close. But it did take 2 weeks to get to that point where I was wondering, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do about this. But I think they were at that point before I was. So it was actually quite an easy decision to make when I did make it.
That's cool. It sounds like, communication and having that amazing communication and kind of teamwork was already in place, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I always find it interesting to interview people who have already been through a recession before, right? And I mean, if you're running a business for 28 years and going through more than one recession, it's quite amazing. I'm always really impressed with that. And going through the previous recession, 2008, 2009, and comparing it to what we're experiencing now, I suppose we haven't even really started the recession yet. This is just a shock of a global pandemic. But what's your kind of approach to preparing for a recession? You've been through this before. You know what's coming. How are you getting your business ready for the next 2 years of difficulty?
I think I was very lucky. So I'm very lucky now to have the hindsight of the last recession, as you said. And I think I was able to see very quickly what worked in my brand at that time. And as I said, I mentioned that I started a diffusion line, which was kind of a lower price point version of what I do in my main collection. So I kind of knew coming up to this time that if we were heading that direction again, that could still be my fallback, because I was able to see how people's lifestyle changed, how people were entertaining at home, all that kind of stuff that we're experiencing now, even though they can't really entertain at home. But luckily enough, I had kept that element of my diffusion line within the main collection. So it's still there. And I can see that that's what's working really well for us online now. Amazing.
So I don't know if you can see on the right-hand side here, but you're getting a lot of love from all these comments.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't see anything. It's just as well because I'd be like,
Jason Greystone says, "I love Mary Grant." so inspiring.
Love you back, Jason.
Tim says, "What an inspiring story. Thanks for sharing, Mary." Sabrina says, "Amazing." Yeah, a lot of support and interest for your story. Definitely inspiring. So we've talked a bit about your background. We've talked about business before the lockdown. We've talked about when the lockdown hit, what happened, and sort of what that felt for you and the team. We're now a week into the lockdown. Let's say what did you start doing? You mentioned you started to kind of piece together an online course, right?
I did. So we locked down on the Saturday, and by Sunday I had brain dumped the contents of a course. It was nothing related to my business. Basically, it was just, I called it working from home because it was what it was. I just felt that so many people had been thrown into a situation that I had quite happily lived in for, the best part of 3 decades where I was working from home, that I had to have some value to bring to people. So that's what I did. I brain dumped the whole thing, and I spent the following week writing it, recording it, learning how to use the platform that I hosted it on. I literally completely engrossed myself in it. I'd say the kids probably didn't get 2 words out of me all week, but that was kind of how I dealt with that whole putting some distance between closing the shops and having to deal with them. So it wasn't quite burying my head in the sand. It was just putting some distance so that I could start to think more clearly about how to move forward. So that's what I did that week.
Amazing. So immediately, you're feeling this threat of losing what business was, at that stage, not knowing, when things would go back to normal, but you poured yourself into something creative, which was creating this online course. Did you ever execute the online course and stick it online and start working?
I sure did. Yeah.
So it's now online.
It's now online. I put it out there. I said, this is my free gift to anybody who wants to use it. Hopefully it'll be of value for some people. So between the brain dump, that was on Sunday, and it went online on the following Friday.
I love that. That's amazing. Something Jason, who's watching now, says a lot of the time. It's serving is just the kind of the best way to go, right? If you're putting value out there in the world, it finds a way of coming back to you in some way. So I love the fact that as soon as you went through this difficult transition, the first thing you did was, how can I help other people? Right? That's what your first thought was, how can I help other people? And you put this out for free. I think that's absolutely amazing. But obviously at some point, you've got to start generating an income. You've got to start creating revenue to keep the business going. You've got to start to pivot. And there was no sign that shops would open anytime soon, right? Or that people would, that you'd have the same footfall being in a touristy location as you previously had. Yeah. So what was your more sort of medium-term thinking then?
The medium-term thinking was like all this stock for a new season had just landed. And on the week when our season was, would typically take off and, we'd start paying all the bills and all the rest, suddenly we were locked down. So it's like, oh my God, what was quite terrifying. Our social media had ground to a halt because my daughter works with me. She's my brand manager at the moment. I have her on loan for a few months until she starts doing her master's. But she was working with me, or she's still working with me. But she was like, I'm afraid to go online. So there was this whole thing where people were terrified to show up online. They didn't know what to be saying. They didn't want to come across as being salesy, as trying to sell any products or whatever. So I just said to her, look, let's just do our thing. And we started showing up on our stories, just acting the clown when we were at work, and just little things that would be going on across the desk, and people really loved it. They're really? Like, oh, thank you, you're really cheering us up. And so there was nothing salesy about it. We weren't promoting our product, we weren't talking about our product. We were just, oh, here we are at our desk, and here we are having our little dance, so we're getting our movements in, and just silly stuff like that. And then the sales just started coming in. And we were like, oh, this is great. So once people started to tell us how much they loved the way we were showing up, we were able to do more of that.
Interesting. So really you weren't changing anything. You were kind of shedding a light on what you're already doing, right? It was just, this is us. This is the authentic, transparent, real team. And this is our culture at Mary Grant. Yeah,
exactly.
And that created engagement and traction, and people just loved the kind of behind the scenes of what this authentic company was doing.
Yeah, they just loved it. And then Brona and I would have great banter anyway, because we get on so well. So, we're like 2 peas in a pod. So we've great fun working together anyway. So people just love that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So tell me, what happened next?
So what happened next then was just the sales started to come in. So like 2 weeks. So for the first 2 weeks after lockdown, there was nothing. It was like, I don't know what we're going to do. There's nothing coming in. At that point, we didn't know that it was going to be extended past the end of March because we thought initially that we were reopening on the 29th of March, and obviously that didn't happen. But then the sales started to come in the following week. So on the 3rd week, sales started to come in, and by 3 weeks after that, we'd hit about 50% of what we would do in the 2 stores together. So
Online.
online, yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's incredible, isn't it? So from a busy, tourist spot location in Ireland with, lots of footfall, lots of people coming in and out of your shop, and of course the big expense of running a shop and having the rent on that shop, you managed to pivot online, and you were getting 50% of the same revenue that you were generating. That must be a massive shift. Like that's a big deal, isn't it? Because if you consider the way you must look at your business now, if you consider the change, your cost would have shot down. No, you're no longer operating that, the big retail space. If this was a separate business you're kind of looking at, right, from a kind of outsider's perspective in, it's almost like potentially your business has evolved into a more profitable business. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it has. So now at this stage, I had to. So Brona's working with me. I have a son who's at home who's he's studying photography. So now we've roped him in. So he's our fulfillment person.
The whole family is now on board.
Yeah. So
any more talented family members you can just hire in.
He's very talented at Xbox. So we haven't found a job for him yet. He cooks the dinners, so we'll let him off.
Oh, cool. There you go, a talented chef.
Yeah. So it has got me thinking. So now the next thing on my agenda is the scheduled dates to reopen our stores are the 9th of June, and we can't reopen the one in Dublin until August because that's in a shopping mall. So now it's about how do we reopen the stores in a safe way. So I've been reaching out to other store owners, other independents, because obviously the department stores and all the big guys, the chains will all have their own procedures. So I'm just putting heads together now with a few of the smaller independents to see how are we going to do this safely. But I do think it has encouraged people to shop online. I don't know what it will do when we reopen. I think we just have to figure that out as we're going along. But I do see that there's huge potential for my team members to still speak to customers online and to just basically to show up where our customers are at. Yeah.
I mean, over here we're slightly ahead of the UK in that we were locked down earlier, and then we started to ease the rules off earlier. And I think now retail stores they're slowly opening, restricted hours, but a lot of they check your temperature when you go in, all that sort of stuff. You can't for a period of time you couldn't do refunds, you couldn't buy something and then return it. That wasn't allowed, but I think they're even easing that now. But yeah, this is it, isn't it? As one of the many challenges, unlike a recession, people now have to deal with. Well, hold on, how do you actually reopen now that you may have business to go back to, but how do you operate a business when you've also got to operate under this virus, which is still out there and airborne, and potentially people who visit your shop could have.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a bit of a challenge that I think next week is my week for figuring all that out. So I'm kind of just chatting to other people at the moment and seeing trying to find whatever articles I can online of, from people that have gone ahead of us and what they're all doing. But there's very little out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rules about distancing, but the practical stuff, there's not that much out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is it. And then, reaching out to your network and discussing ideas and sharing best practice is obviously the way forward, isn't it? It really, one of the things I've really noticed is how many businesses have found a more profitable way to run their business, not in spite of this, but because of this, right?
Yes, yeah.
But my only question would be, how sustainable is that? Did the spike you saw online, was that mostly from people who were current shop goers? There were people who were sort of regulars, or is it a lot of them were there new people around the world, or what sort of made up that customer base?
A lot of regulars, but what I'm also seeing from the membership that I started out of the wardrobe challenges, there's not that many people in it. There's 42 people, 42 founder members, but they're all selling to each other.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So there's a couple of regulars in there, and they're posting stuff every day, and everybody's like, "Oh, what have you got on?" And next thing we'll see an order coming in for that. So You know, part of me is thinking I can put my girls into those groups on the days when they're in, and it's kind of, we are going to have to figure it out as we're going along. But I do think there's huge potential for growth because of that.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was a wardrobe challenge. We've had the first time we spoke about challenges as a means to generate new leads and people interested in business was with Richard Woods, who came on here with his 5-day leads challenge with Facebook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wardrobe challenge. Tell us about the wardrobe challenge. This sounds genius, by the way. I think I might have seen a couple of videos of this.
It was just basically it was just detox your wardrobe. So, you know, based on, and it's funny when I wrote my book, when I was writing my book last year, I was like, oh my God, like I'm writing a book about clothes. Like I don't even know what to write. But the more I was brain dumping, the more all the other stuff was emerging, the mindset and the things that I'd worked on with customers over all the years, and, you know, where I see people getting stuck. So, you know, a typical times in life when people get stuck, you know, after they've had a baby, or when they hit a big birthday, or, you know, after an illness or a divorce or a loss. These are all places that people get stuck in a rut. So as I was writing my book, this was all starting to come to the surface again. And the book ended up being more about mindset than clothes, and how you use the clothes how you use it, you know, to put yourself in a positive frame of mind and all this kind of stuff, and how you evolve so that, you know, you don't get stuck in your 20s. You just keep evolving a little bit all the time. So that's kind of what I was going through. I was hitting on it for 5 days with people in the wardrobe challenge, and they just found that it was very fast. Yeah. So they were at breakneck speed. They were getting their wardrobe detox done, but there was a lot of stuff that was being left undone. So really? So that's where the membership came in. And now I'm kind of writing the course and doing it at a slower pace, so that, you know, that I'm really kind of taking people on that journey of just slowly evolving and understanding what it is that we're doing and all the rest. And it seems to be working for them. So Module 3 has been released this evening. So just even on the first 2 modules, I'm seeing a lot of aha moments for people, which is cool. So
with your membership, could you tell us a little about it's an online membership, right?
Sorry, I lost you there for a sec. What was that?
So with the membership, could you tell us a little bit about
that? So the membership, I really hadn't a clue what I was doing, to be honest with you. I had started to follow a couple of people last year that I was really interested in, people like James Wedmore, who does like online courses and stuff. So it was kind of all happening around the same time as the book. And Stu McLaren, who would be, he's a membership guru. So I was kind of following these guys, and the idea was coming around that, you know, at some point I would like to have a membership where all my customers are there, but I'm serving them on a deeper level. So I was kind of, these ideas were coming at me, but I didn't really know how to do it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I actually did my founder launch when Stu was doing his 3-week runway free workshops. And there was people in there, and they were like, oh, I'm going to do my founder member launch. So I was kind of building my what you call it? Keynote. I didn't know what a keynote was. So I was kind of building, clueless, like absolutely clueless. But I was building this as he was going through the workshops. And I just hit the button on it. And yeah, I'm just going to spend the next 8 weeks learning how to do it properly.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Brilliant. I love that. I think you're being quite humble. I think you've done an enormous amount. But a lot of what I'm getting from you is even if you're not completely sure, you've still got that assertiveness to put an idea out there, and it's putting it out there at speed, because ultimately those who can act fast and test things, they're the ones who kind of thrive in this sort of environment. Would you agree with that?
I think so. And something that I hear a lot is fail fast.
Yeah, fail fast.
You either get the result you want or the lesson that you need. So, this thing of sitting around waiting until everything is perfect, it's such a waste of time, because you don't know if you've got it right.
Yeah, this is it, or spending too long trying to perfect something before you get feedback from the market, or even the worst case scenario from what I've seen, speaking to lots of small businesses here, is sort of burying your head in the sand and holding on until this is all over.
Yes.
and then what if this is a two year thing?
Absolutely.
So I mean, rapidly pivoting online as you did. And one of the questions I always ask in this series is to do with mentorship, because I feel like the most successful people that I've spoken to have had a mentor or mentors, or they've been through a course or a program that's really influenced them. Maybe not during this pivot, but previously, which has kind of built them up to it. And given them the foundation to quickly get through it and have the tools to do that. Has there been anything like that for you?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that journey started for me about 2 years ago when I did when I did the KPI program with Dent Global. That was the start of it, and being in that community. And I loved that whole online community. I loved being in the group. I loved getting in there, talking to people, just connecting with people. I had no idea where it was going. I just knew that I loved it. And I've been really active in that. And I think without the support of a group like that and a couple of other ones that I've joined since, I probably wouldn't have had the nerve to do what I've done and do it so fast.
Yeah.
I do think being surrounded by people that, think in a similar way and people that you can bounce ideas off is just, it's so important.
So, I mean, initially with the Key Person of Influence course, you did the course first and then you were part of the group. A lot of people that I speak to, especially with the KPI course, the course is incredible and it helps set their business up and scale very quickly. But there's a lot of power in the community.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And for me, like the most value out of it was definitely the community.
Amazing. So yeah, a lot of the time with FTEN X Academy, and what we do with our activation courses, we basically help businesses pivot online very quickly. And one of the questions we always get is, a lot of people come to us and they say, I just want to make the course. I don't want to do a community alongside it. And I say, you're missing 50% of the game by doing that.
Absolutely.
When you build a community who are all aligned, who are all, talking, sharing ideas, sharing best practice, that you're getting so much value, you're sharing so much value, and your course, it just has this huge injection of meaning.
Absolutely.
And it's like this tribe which goes out there and markets for you essentially, because they're going to be referring people, talking about what you're doing and making connections, making partnerships, and it's all down to your course, which kind of sparked that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The community for me is just so important for the for the whole thing to thrive and to scale. And even there was the people who signed up to the inner membership, the inner circle membership. If they hadn't gone into the Facebook group, I was there and I was emailing them and it's like, get into the group, it's like dragging them into the group. I'm not on Facebook. Yes, you are. Here, I'll set it up for you. It's like, but they're all in there now, supporting each other.
That's another typical one we get is none of my customers are on Facebook.
Yeah, right. Everybody's on Facebook.
Everyone's on Facebook. Have you asked all of your customers if they're on Facebook or not? Because you might be surprised.
a lot of them would say I'm not on Facebook, but some of them, we've actually got some of them on Facebook. I'm like, oh my God, you're missing out on so much. It's like, no matter what you're interested in, there's a community there. It was like the one that I found about ants. So it's like, let's all pretend we're ants.
Yeah.
1.5 million people in the group.
Talk about a niche. Talk about a niche, right?
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant.
Yeah, there's a rich tapestry of groups out there on Facebook. But definitely, it's such a brilliant platform. I mean, look what we've got here, and guys watching in Dubai right now. I mean, we've got over 200 business owners in Dubai watching this with us, and it's so hard to create something like this on any other platform. It's a brilliant platform to do it.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So I'd like to go into some sort of practical advice now. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that small business owners make during this time, or you spotted people make during this time?
Probably the biggest mistake that I see people making, and you mentioned it earlier, is sitting, waiting to reopen, thinking nothing's going to have changed, that everything's going to go back to the way it was. That's
Yeah.
that's going to be, that's not going to be good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I think that is the biggest mistake. And like some really intelligent people that are saying, oh, we're just going to open up and things are going to continue as normal. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think you've got to, and I think as well, and like another mistake that I see people making, and it was something that I learned very on when, I won't go into details about it, but I learned this lesson very, very early on in my business, and I learned it the hard way, is that you've got to keep evolving. And I learned it because it's like everybody was copying what I was doing. So if I didn't keep moving, it was too easy for somebody to, to swipe in and, take what I was doing and maybe do it better or whatever. So I knew that I had to keep moving. I had to always be one step ahead. And that just became a habit. And that's like, I'm always evolving the business. So it's like, well, what comes next? And, what's new in software? How are people thinking? How is the world evolving? And I think you have to keep evolving your business in line with that. I think if you stand still, you are going to be overrun.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage, to consistently evolve, and especially when you're faced with so much adversity, right? And it's not like a small change. It's a full-on evolution process that a lot of people are going through, right? Especially if you've never really done a lot of online stuff before.
Yeah. That's something else as well. I think a lot of, and I don't know what it's like over there, but certainly a lot of retail here, like clothing retail, had absolutely no online presence at all.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's insane. It was insane before this, and they're all scrambling now to get online and they don't know how to do it, and they've resisted. And it's like it's that resisting change, which has left them in this situation now where they are frantically scrambling.
Do you think, and I know for the high street, especially in the UK, is evolving at a very, very fast pace anyway. Do you feel that this has just accelerated it, and we've jumped 5 years forward because of what we're doing now?
Yes, I do. I think, and certainly when it comes to high street clothing, I think that's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. I think people have become a lot more aware of the environment during this pandemic. I think there's going to be a huge turn. And I think anybody who's not addressing that they're going to be in trouble as well. But certainly it's going to be very interesting to see how it all pans out. It really is. I think, in terms of online, and I think it's going to be changed forever. I'm just not quite sure what it looks like yet.
But it sounds to me like you're ready to evolve and seize the moment, seize the opportunity. So
yeah.
We've got some great questions on the side here, and I've been saving them. So I think I'll just I'll scroll through a couple of these. If that's okay. We've got one here from Tim. Do you think all industries are able to pivot and thrive in this crisis?
I do think all industries can pivot. I think it's up to the people that are leading them to just put on their creative head and to have a little bit of confidence, because basically, it could all go belly up if you don't. I think you've nothing to lose at the moment for trying things.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. Another question we've got here, Tim again. What do you believe businesses and entrepreneurs should be investing their time in right now? What crucial assets do you think every company should have?
I do think everybody needs to have some form of digital assets in their business, some intellectual property, for sure. And I think we learned that from writing our books when we were doing the Key Person of Influence program. And I see now that people that have their books, it's like, I even find now I'm going back to my own book. It's never too far away. And I'm constantly flicking things and being able to pull my own content from it. I do think building your own assets, your own intellectual property is going to be really important.
We're going to have we're actually interviewing Lucy McGarraher later in the month. That'll be really interesting. Exactly what you said. One of the biggest, as well as the book being, hold on, you see, it's actually underneath this laptop. Look at that. Boom. There we go. well as being and now this is going to become a pitch, guys, where you can all grab your special offer on the Warrior Method book, as well as being a really good business card, right? Instead of using a business card, giving someone a book, because it's something that sits on the coffee table or sits in the cupboard for a long time, right? But as well as that, for me, the biggest thing I got from writing that book 3 years ago now was that, you know, you've then got 40, 50,000 words of content you can repurpose, but it gives you so many insights into developing your methodology, you know, developing assets around it, and developing IP, just like you said, you know. And then this second book that I'm doing now with Menno, I think you know Menno as well. We're co-authoring the Not a Victim book. Again, that one there, we've got so many assets, and you know, the methodology's completely changed. We've got so much content we can create from that. We've just taken that book and turned it into an online course, and it just gives structure to everything you do. Do you know what I mean? It's a really valuable lesson, I think.
It is, and the whole idea that it's all your own thoughts that are gone into that. It's like every time I go to my book, I'm like, this is all mine. It's like I don't have to worry about plagiarizing anybody. Not that I would anyway, but you know, it's like that you can go to your own book and you can pull things from it. It's like that's amazing, and everybody has a book in them.
Yeah, and you know what? For us, you know, for our team, it's become a bit of a culture asset as well. We ask anyone who joins the Warrior Academy to read the book, and they have to sit an online exam to show they've read the book, and it becomes, you know, it's like a manual for how to do the job, right? Do you know what I mean? And so there are so many uses to it, you know. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. You know, really, really interesting. Let's see if we've got any more questions up here. Let's have a quick look. Question here. What is the top advice you would give to businesses struggling in these difficult times? What's your number one piece? I know I'm really digging here because you've already given lots of amazing advice.
I think protect your headspace.
Yeah, that was one.
Crucial. Yeah, you have to protect your headspace, because on any given day this week, there's creative stuff going on. There's having to deal with all the, you know, the reopening issues. There's all the different things, and it's trying to protect your headspace when you're working on one, so that you're not taking all the rubbish and letting it infect everything else. So I do think protecting your headspace is number one, and just be brave. You know, just pull it from somewhere. It's there. It's just get out there and try things.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to end an awesome interview as well. To be brave and go out there and try it. You know, you'll never know until you try it. Exactly.
And try to find groups that are, you know, where there's people that are trying to do the same thing. It's like our group. It's just find those groups, find that support, surround yourself with those people, and everything is possible.
Amazing. We've got some lovely comments here. That's great advice. Love it. Learning so much from this interview. Such a good idea. Amazing advice. Thanks for that. Amazing. Brilliant. And Mary, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. What's the best way for everyone to get in touch with you? I am Mary Grant Designer on Facebook and Instagram, and that's where we're most active. Amazing. Awesome. Thanks again, Mary. Thanks a million, Seb. Lovely to chat. You too. Bye.